On this episode of the John 1911 podcast, baby goats, Wilson CQB, AR-9 rifles, and the bump stock lawsuit. Okay, good evening, everybody. This is Kraken and Marky, and this is episode 333 of the John 1911 podcast. Today is Monday, March 11th, about 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're just going to call this the Proof of Life episode because I haven't done a podcast in so long. People are getting worried, and obviously it's been construction related. And so Kraken had texted me and said something. I don't know what it even was. And I was like, dude, can we just do a Proof of Life podcast real quick? So we don't even know what the hell. We're just turning it on. How have you been? What's going on with you?
I haven't been too bad. Just raising these baby goats and trying to stay out of trouble.
Oh, that's right. We didn't tell people that you got. Did we mention baby goats on the on social media?
I don't think so.
You don't give baby goats steroids, do you? Is that how that
No,
works?
no, this
Okay.
isn't the WWE.
Okay. Well, no. Did you see my joke? Everyone's going to hear the noise. This is not a beer. That is a sparkling water that I got at Kroger. That the Kroger employee made the Cincinnati Reds joke. Because like enhanced, because I was looking for sparkling water and I'm looking like all this water and all this soft drinks. Like, dude, where's sparkling water? He goes, it's in aisle whatever with the juice, enhanced water, and the Cincinnati Reds because I guess some big Reds player just got banned for 80 games for sticking needles in his ass, and they're all kinds of upset around here. I had no idea. So, hmm. So yeah,
Oh, so
that's a good
so he
audio.
gets banned for 80 games, but they still won't let Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame.
You know, I I don't think we've ever really talked about this since you were
Free
kind of.
Pete, free Pete.
Yeah. I got bad news for everybody. I knew Pete's bookie, and I knew Pete's bookie's wife, and I knew Pete was guilty when all the city was like. I mean, I hate to say this, but Pete. I mean, Pete has earned his suspension. Pete was such a dick about everything. Pete Rose and lying and lying and lying and lying. He made a deal with the commissioner and then walked out there and reneged on the deal in front of the the press. I mean, like they say, contributed to Bart Giamatti's early death. And then every year he swore up and down that he would, I never bet on baseball, and like and then like every year at the Hall of Fame ceremony, he would had a radio show, and he would do the radio show live from a sports book. And then finally, after all these years, the Reds released all this information they had on him. They even had, ticket stubs and shit. Like they had him cold, and Pete finally admitted, yes, he bet on baseball, and you know he'll get in. I think he shouldn't get in. He'll get in after he's dead.
But
Um,
but did he bet on games where he affected the outcome?
yes, he bet
Okay,
on
because
Reds.
that's the part I haven't heard was he was whether he bet. I had heard that he had bet, but not on games that he could influence the outcome on.
Yes. Well, he because he kept moving the goalpost.
Hmm.
He was like, I never bet on what was it? I never bet on baseball. Then it was. I mean, I used to know all this stuff. I never bet
Yeah,
on baseball. Then it was. I never bet on the Reds. And then he said, I never bet against the Reds. But basically, what ends up happening is, even from the bookie's point of view, you can just look at, if I am trying to, if I'm trying to figure out the line or beat the line as a third party, and I have access on this game, and I just go, hey, did Pete bet on his own team today? Yes or no. The fact that he didn't bet is still a bet. It still affects the line. It
hmm
affects the information, and it's just like, I mean, I don't want, people don't want to hear what I have to say about Pete Rose, but I mean, I'm intimately familiar, and I mean, it's a tragedy. I think Pete lives forever if he stays banned from baseball. I think he lives forever. Like no one would know
Yeah.
who Shoeless Joe Jackson was. I mean, you know what I mean? Like no, like
Hmm.
how the fact that I don't even watch sports and I know who I can just say Shoeless Joe Jackson. I mean, Shoeless Joe Jackson is probably one of like the five, six, or eight baseball players that I can name,
Yeah.
like ever. You know what I mean? And like if they ban Pete forever, he'll live forever. He'll be one of the most famous baseball players 100 years from now.
Yeah.
So
My
you
whole
know,
thing on Pete Rose is the Hall of Fame should be for what you did on the field. Because if you start digging into everybody's personal life, half the people in the Hall of Fame pre Pete Rose era would never get in today.
oh
You
yeah, I
you
mean,
take somebody
yeah,
like just Ty Cobb for example. Nobody disputes that he belongs in the Hall of Fame, but if you dig into his personal life, he would be shunned from baseball just as much as Pete Rose is today.
oh,
So make
there's
make
some
it about the
girl.
game, not about the personal life. I mean, we've
Yeah,
got
well,
home run
yeah,
kings with an asterisk by their name. Uh,
yeah.
Pete Rose
Pete.
just pissed off the wrong people.
Well, no, I mean Pete was out of Pete was. I mean, the reality is Pete was what's the Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
You know that movie, and towards the end,
Yeah.
Pete was at towards the end of Pete's career, he was just out of control.
Oh yeah.
And no one really wants to look at it like that, but that's really what was going on. Pete was out of control. And I mean Pete was even a lot of people don't remember because, like Pete was a what you call a player manager.
Hmm.
Like he was the manager of the team. He also was a player at the same time. He had this unique job. And Marge Schott was the owner. And like I think he took him to was it to the 1990 World Series? Did he take him to the World Series in 1990 or was he kicked out? When
I'm
did
not sure
maybe
on that one.
maybe he when was he kicked out? Was he kicked out in 89 and then like they went to the World Series in 1990 then he missed the world. I see it's been so long I can't even.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think they're doing him a favor at this point just keeping him out.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you and I had talked about it before, so that was kind of bait. I wanted to drag you down the rabbit hole just for
oh
shits and
god.
giggles on that one.
Yeah, I mean the thing is I mean like dude, I mean like I know his bookie. I mean I used to.
Yeah.
I mean, he used to. And wait a minute. Let me clarify something. I don't gamble. Okay, I didn't know his bookie because he was my bookie. I knew him because he worked out at this gym that I worked out at, and he had this really cute little wife, and she really liked me. And and anyone that would know him, if you're listening to this, his wife at the time had really long blonde like kinky spiral perm like hair, and it was like, oh shit, he really did know her. It's like, yeah, I know him. I know the cars they drove. I'd see him. I'd see him every day as I worked. I mean, almost every day. I worked out 5 days a week, 6 days a week. It's like I know these people. I know what's going on. I knew the bookies, and I knew the dopers, and I knew the fucking I know which dudes are fucking gay in the gym, fucking cruising for dick, and who are the dudes that are stepping out on their wives. I mean, that whole gym scene was like like some kind of high school
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't. That's why John 1911 has it. Well, it's been packed up, but John 1911 has its own gym, like with heavy duty equipment, because it just got to a point where I just stopped. Like what I used to do, just as an example, I used to just every 6 months, it didn't matter if things were fine or things were whatever. My policy was minimum every 6 months I changed gyms
Hmm.
because I just always like to keep it moving because I don't want to know people. I don't want to get involved in their stories or getting whatever. And I figured out it'd take about 6 months was a good time to start. I would just dip out. And so I would cycle these gyms, and that's probably the wrong word, but 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 I would cycle these gyms And and like I might not come back to a particular gym for 4 years, because I mean I could, because you just kind of like the last gym I cycled out of before I finally decided to just, I was like, this is crazy. I just built her own shit. This woman, this woman she glummed on to me, and she would like, I'd be warming up, I'd be on a treadmill or something, and she'd come up and start talking to me. She wasn't unattractive, but it's like, I'm just not interested. And, I don't know what the hell old I was at the time, but, I shit you not, she's a witch. Like the Wiccan,
Wiccans.
like, yeah, she's a Wiccan and all this. And, she started talking to me, and, I'm kind of stuck on a treadmill next to her or whatever and listening to shit. And she just started bringing stuff up. And the fact that I said, oh, so like Wiccan, right? And the fact I knew what Wiccan was, like I said the word, it almost, she was like, just vomited all this shit at me, just like she's like, "Oh my God, like you understand me." I'm like, "No, baby, I just read." Like, just come on. It's like, and it just got to be so bad. She would follow me around this gym. I remember I went into this coffee shop near that gym late one night, like 11 o'clock at night. I was just sitting there on a computer working on business stuff, and she was drunk at she'd been at some party, and she walked in and she saw me, and I hadn't seen her in a long time, and she came drunk, and she was sitting on me, and I had to for real, like for really to totally shoot her down with both barrels while she was drunk in the middle of this coffee shop. And it was just kind of reinforced the whole, like, man, I need to get the fuck, I just change these goddamn gyms every 6 months. These women, they either all in everybody's business, or they're on everybody's jock because they're looking for husbands and boyfriends. And it's just, so yeah. So I mean, I knew Pete. I knew Pete. I knew what was up with Pete quite a bit when the world didn't. It's like, So yeah, you fucking got me down that rabbit hole. So, son of
You
a
know how I
bitch.
like to fish.
Yeah, I'm gonna get hate mail. Every time we bring up Pete Rose, I get hate mail. Just so you know, I get hate mail. But the worst one we ever got was, and again, I don't watch sports, and now that he's finally retired, I guess I remember, is is it Tom Brady, right? He's the quarterback. He was the really hot shit quarterback.
Yeah.
And you remember there was a game, we talked about this on pod, and I mean, this exploded talking about this sports shit. For some reason, it came up. There was a game where Tom Brady, I guess, they deflated the football.
Yep. Deflate gate.
Okay, so it was called Deflategate. So anyway, I mean, I saw, like, made all the news or whatever, and I remember, like, I don't know shit about football, and I don't know shit about Deflategate, and I don't know shit about shit when it comes to any of that. Like, I mean, I don't know how many home runs Tom Brady has hit in his career. Like, I really don't. But I know people, okay? And I know when I saw that football player intercept the ball, he grabbed the ball out of the air and he pulled it down, and the play, and he's looking at the ball, and he's touching the ball, and he's like, what the fuck is wrong with this ball? And he's looking at it, not like he's trying to sell it. It's a spontaneous, it's in court, they would call this a spontaneous utterance. It was just like, he was just like, what the fuck? And it was so shocking that the ball was fucked up that I don't know if he handed it to the ref, or he was like, what's wrong with this fucking ball? Like, it just was wrong. You know what I mean? Like, if you pick
Hmm.
up something that you touch every day, and then you pick it up and you're like, this is fucking jacked up. And I saw that, and I was like, well, I don't know. I don't know the motivations. I didn't know you could deflate, or there was even an opinion. See, I would think a sports person, like I would think the quarterback would want the ball to be exactly the same every time. You know what I mean? Like, I've been throwing the same ball for all these years. I want it to be exactly the same way. I don't want it to change. I'll never forget that whoever caught that ball and the way he reacted when he touched the ball, he was like, "What the fuck?" And I was like, "Yeah, something's wrong here." I saw that and I'm like, I don't know how it all works, but something was wrong. And when I said that on podcast, we got hundreds. Oh my God, because I didn't realize. See, I'd see dumbass me. I didn't realize it's. I've kind of learned it now that I guess at the time the New England Patriots were basically like the biggest fucking thing like ever. And I'm like, here I am shitting, we have this gun podcast and I'm shitting on Tom Brady. It's just like, like, oh my God, we got, fuck you guys. We'll never buy your shirts again. I'm gonna throw your shit away. I'm blocking you. Like, and then it was about the Bengals coming out. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what, whatever. So yeah, sports does not treat me well. So so I don't know. I want to get off this. Help me. I'm drowning here. Fucking say
I was just kind
something.
of letting you flounder around out there to see if you could swim or not.
Oh God.
So I got my new toy in today that we were talking about
Oh yeah, I totally
from
forgot. Tell
from
people.
Poor Shit Armament.
From
So
what?
Poor Shit Armament PSA.
Oh, okay. Oh,
So
wait a minute. No. No, no, no. We're talking about different stuff here. Because
well, probably.
you had picked up what happened to the CQB.
Oh, I've still got it.
I mean, you got that since we last did a podcast. Kraken bought a Wilson CQ or somehow traded or did something. I don't know what he did. I don't know if he I don't know. Did you go to the parking lot? What'd you do here? But somehow he popped up with a CQB. Have you shot that gun?
Hey, she's only ugly until you turn the lights off. That's how I got it. Uh,
So,
okay, yeah. So let's make sure we're on the right one here. So yeah, I picked up a local guy. Uh, deals messes around with high end pistols quite a bit. He's always got something he's trying to wheel and deal with, and uh, caught this CQB that he had. So got hold of him and said, "Hey, let's figure something out here." So I wound up with it. New in the bag, uh, all the goodies with it, and I'll tell you what, I've had some pretty nice 1911s, but this CQB really takes the cake. Uh, the trigger pull alone on it is better than a lot of my decent rifles.
oh yeah,
Oh,
oh
it's
yeah.
just the fitment, and I mean just the fit and finish, and it's just incredible.
Now is it
So
new?
yeah,
Is it
it's
brand
new.
new?
It brand new. Hasn't had a round through it yet.
Oh, you haven't fired it at all. You just loved on it.
Yeah, pretty much. Wipe a little DNA off here and there, but
Are
the
are you
weather's not.
planning are you planning on shooting it and keeping it, or are you going to just set it back and maybe use it as trade bait?
Oh no, I'll keep this one. Uh, it's going in the permanent keeper collection.
Okay.
The only reason I haven't shot it yet is we had 80 degrees last week, and 2 days later we had snow. So the range is muddy, and it's that time of the year up here on top of the hill that a 25-mile-an-hour wind is a pretty mild day. So it's just kind of miserable to be out right now. So when I take it
So
out, I'm gonna do it on a good day when I can maybe do some video and
so you have snow on the ground right now?
in shady places right now. I do.
Wow. Okay. Is it? I guess
But
it's heading towards me then.
well, it snowed a few days ago, but it's the temperatures just come back up. But in the shade, it's still piled up a little bit. But we had 81 degrees, a new record high, and then 2 days later it got down to 18 with 30-mile-an-hour winds, and we probably got 4 inches of snow out of the deal.
Hmm. That
So my
sucks.
goats were not liking life.
Oh, you make them sleep outside? You don't put them in the bedroom?
No,
Little
no,
baby.
no. They've got their own pen outside, but so I stayed up all night worried it was too cold for them because they were only about 3.5, 4 weeks old. But yeah, pulled through just fine. But
Yeah, yeah, those are some weird looking dogs. I don't understand. Like, yeah. They're cute though. The pictures you sent me were pretty cute. Now, are
oh,
these the
they're the
kind of
biggest
goats?
time wasters out there. You're ever in a bad mood, you just go out and watch the goats for 5 minutes, and pretty soon you forget why you're in a bad mood. They're just like big dumb dogs.
Now, do all goats like are there? I've seen goats where they get scared and they fall over. They have some kind of
Fainty
short.
goats.
Is that all goats or just some goats?
All goats can do it, but there's certain breeds that it's really easy to do. Uh, basically, they kind of it has to do with their blood pressure, and they kind of freak out and over they go, and then they pop back up, 10, 15 seconds later, and you can do it to them all day long. But
That's a
it's
long time.
it's an amazing way to keep drunks entertained at a party. I can tell you that.
Now, is that something that happened in nature, or is that something that happened because of breeders?
I don't know. They don't get very. Any goat will faint if it's startled enough, but
Oh, I didn't know that.
what people call fainting goats, I don't. It's a genetic. It's a bad genetic marker, is the way I understand it. So uh, they don't get very big, and they don't live very as long as say like a boar goat or a meat goat. Uh, but yeah, it's you chase them around and clap your hands, and over they go, and they get back up 10, 15 seconds later, and you
So
chase them
these
around, do
goats,
it again.
you can't really eat these goats. They're not considered meat goats.
No, what I've got are meat goats. They're boars, Boers. So they'll actually get pretty big, but they get up about 90 pounds, and that's kind of what the market around here is. Uh, between the
That's a big
Mexicans,
goat.
oh no, 80, 90 pounds is just the right eating size. Uh,
Okay.
but around here, the Mexicans and the Arabs buy goats like crazy, and that's that's like me barbecuing a brisket, them roasting a goat, or it's kind of funny. Every so often, you'll see an old piece of shit hoopty pickup going down the highway with two Mexicans with a giant smile and a goat tied up in the back of the bed, doing 60 mile an
Uh,
hour down the road, and you look at the goat, and it's like, you're going to a barbecue. You just don't know you're the guest of honor.
yeah, I'm sure the hippies don't like that at all.
But I got these just for pets. I got a male and a female, and wife grew up on a farm, and she always kind of wanted goats, and I was like, no, we ain't getting no damn goats. Uh,
And
only
you
been
and
around
you,
goats one other time, and it got me in a lot of trouble. Uh,
hey, look. They said that goat was of age, and that shit was dropped. We don't have to bring that up.
it was
It
consensual.
was consensual. It was not.
Now, way
Hey,
back about 1990, my buddy his wife had a little pygmy goat. Now they get on everything. I mean, they can jump 4 or 5 foot in the air from just standing there, and they climb on
they
everything.
can jump 5 feet in the
Oh
air.
yeah, they can chew up stuff. They can jump like you wouldn't believe. So we'd been in the beer a little bit on a Sunday afternoon, and my buddy had this really nice Chevelle, but it was I don't know, about a 70, 75, 76, somewhere in there. When it looked kind of more like a Monte Carlo, but it had the half vinyl top on it. And this little pygmy goat that his wife had jumped up on top of it and was trying to chew up the vinyl. And he started a
Mm.
cussing, and that goddamn goat of my wife's. I wish somebody would shoot that son of a bitch. Okay. So I pulled a pistol out, shot the goat off the top of his Chevelle. And of course, it's a white Chevelle, so there's blood running down the side of the Chevelle. This guy turned so white, I thought I'd shot him, and ricocheted, and he was dead. And he was like, "Oh my god, I wasn't fucking serious. My wife's gonna kill me." She comes running out because she hears a gunshot, knows we had to have done something stupid. There's her goat doing the death dance by the side of the car with a streak of blood down the side of it. Me holding a pistol. my buddy trying to find some place to hide before his wife comes out, and yeah, we weren't allowed to drink beer on Sunday afternoon anymore.
I don't suppose the whole like, hey, I'm here for the barbecue went over well, right? That was
I volunteered to chuck him up on the grill, but that didn't help matters any.
no. I knew a guy. Again, this guy was at this one particular gym where like all these crazy fucking people, the Pete Rose's bookie and all this stuff. This guy, and he was a big party guy, and he was like an adult, like he was even much older than even me. And he had a pet um monkey, and it wasn't like it wasn't like one of those little monkeys that you saw in like Indiana Jones. It was like a monkey, like a monkey from like like from BJ and the Bear, like whatever that
Yeah.
monkey was. I don't know the monkey. I just know, after seeing some of his Hollywood movies, I'm like, shoot the fucking monkey. Well, it's like they had this monkey, and it had diaper, and like, it lived with him, and everyone, he'd have these parties and people come over, and eventually he it ended up the monkey eventually started biting people, and the last person it bit was this guy. He's a gun guy. He worked for I referenced this guy before. He worked for the federal government, and he was never that successful with women. He'd scraped up some woman to come to this guy's party, like to be social, and he brought this girl. She's there. They're there like 10 minutes, and fucking monkey bites her. She freaks out. Doesn't really know him. Fucking they have to take her to the hospital, and they're all freaking out. And I remember somebody said something like, hey, watch out for the blood. You got to watch out for AIDS. And somebody said, what if the monkey has AIDS? And these women are just going fucking losing their minds. And so, anyway, long story short, she ended up suing, taking him to court for the medical expenses.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, and so then eventually this ended up being the second claim. So his insurance company, like under his homeowners, they said, you get rid of that fucking monkey, we're gonna drop you from everything. And this guy had businesses, and like, had a boat, and like, I mean, he had assets he needed to insure, and there was basically no way he could keep this monkey, and then he had to take it somewhere and do something. But yeah, like all these crazy pets that some of these people get, like that are just like, there's a reason, like I knew a guy growing up as a kid. Um, his family, like they always had like, like they had like snakes and whatever. Like even as a kid, I had a lizard, I had some lizards, and I had some mice, and we had I even had a ferret at one point, and its cats, and we had dogs on the farm and whatever. But like this family, they'd have these reptiles. I think they had a tarantula. They had, I shit you not, this was in the 70s. No later than like 1981. So I just want people to understand, like, this is, like, it was a different world. Okay. Like, the idea of a bicycle helmet, like, didn't exist. What you could get away with in 1979, 1980, 1981 was crazy. And this guy, he had a shark and this giant tank in his basement. And he was an attorney, and you know he's married, and so he's got to work or whatever, and so it becomes the wife's responsibility to feed this menagerie of all these animals. And all I know is she went to go feed the shark, and the shark tried to bite her, and she had a fit, and she made him get rid of the shark. I remember as a kid, like she was like, we get rid of this fucking, they had a huge fight about it. Like she has to go feed the shark, She's that's she's, I hate as a kid I didn't realize this, but as an adult I look back on it now. What it is he was an attorney and he was successful, and she came from kind of a lower middle, I'd say lower middle class family, and she's a pretty woman. You know, I even recognized her as a pretty woman when I was a child. And I look on it now and I realize she was with him for the lifestyle, and she was with him. She was, you know, like this whole like marrying up thing that people talk about. And it was like she put up with a lot so she could be married to a lawyer and have a nice house. But I think the shark was too much. And she was like, get rid of this fucking shark. So, I mean, they had all kinds of crazy shit. Like, as a matter of fact, that family, because it was a husband and wife, and like I was friends with their children. They were my age. So, like, you know, we're like 8. And one of the kids ended up growing up and actually getting a pet wolf. And you know, I'd never seen the wolf, but I had heard about. I've lost touch with all these people. But it was just like, you know, you read all these stories and you hear the police blotters and the news, and it's just like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you know, like what are you doing? You know, it's like I know there's gonna be somebody out there that's like, you know, the pet wolf is fine and all this is fine. But it's like these people that get these animals that like it's not the animal, but if you don't have the lifestyle, it's like the guy with the shark. If you want the shark, then you better be prepared to take care of the shark, feed the shark, do whatever, because no one wants to deal with your fucking shark. Like it was a shark, and you know, and it's just like the wolf thing, or like people that get the, you know, like the classical example is the pit bull. The people that get the animal but really don't want to they don't really understand the lifestyle that's involved with. It's not like a crotch rocket. Like you can get some death machine bullet bike. Like I had a 600cc crotch rocket. I really did, and you know it wasn't. It was faster than I ever deal with. But a crotch rocket is something you can choose. Today I'm not going to ride the bike. I'm going to put it in the garage. An animal is every day. It's every day, all day, and twice on Sunday. And if you're not ready to deal with it every day, because if you neglect it or you get out of sync with it, or as it gets older and it changes its, you know, its behavior, it starts to affect other people. And, you know, it just a lot of that weird stuff. I'm just really kind of down. So yeah, goats are cute. I'm cool with the goats. And I never used to be this much of a stick in the mud. When I was younger, I'd be like, yeah, fuck, it's great. You have a dinosaur. It's awesome. It's America. Now I'm just like, I've seen so much shit happen. I'm like, I don't know, dude. I'm gonna be living next to someone with a goddamn dinosaur in their backyard. So yeah, anyway, I'm out here struggling again. Say something. What did you buy from PSA? I'm so out of sorts. All this,
PSA
yeah,
horseshit armament. Uh,
I've never
I
heard that
used I
before.
used to have a PSA. They call it an AR-9. It's basically an AR in 9 millimeter. Uses Glock mags,
Oh
and
yeah.
I had gotten their pistol version, and it came with a brace, and I ran the shit out of it for a couple of years. I probably had 3,000 rounds through it. Just, I mean, it'd eat anything.
Mm-hmm.
Just a toy to have around. Well, then when everybody started getting hinky with braces, it's like, I got a buddy that wants this thing way worse than I really need it. And the thought of playing with this thing without a brace is just not very appealing. So it's time to move it along. So I got rid of it. Well, I got a bug up my ass to get another one. So I ordered up a lower. So it's
Mm-hmm.
marked as an other on the 4473.
Yeah.
And then separately ordered up a pistol upper. So now I got to do a Form 1 and SBR it, but that's coming down the pike there. So
So what kind of
all that
magazines
stuff
is it going to
just
take?
came in.
You doing Glock mags?
Glock mags.
Okay.
So actually, I've had really good luck with. I get the 32 round KCI Glock mags and
Those are Korean mags?
Korean ones. Yep. Now, I've never had them hiccup. I get the 17s and I run them for practice. I drop them, step on them, whatever doesn't hurt them. They're cheap mags, and uh, in my experience, they run just as good as a factory Glock mag for half the money. So I get these 32 rounders and don't have a bit of problem with them, other than you get to about round 20 and they get rather hard to load. I actually have to break down and use a loader to load the mags after about 20, 22 rounds.
Hey, I got, I don't care what anybody says. I use loaders all the time because I load mags all the time.
Hmm.
I use them. I use because the thing is, it's not even the idea of like, oh, you can't use your fingers. It's like, yeah, I'm not loading one mag.
Yeah.
I'm loading 10, and then I'm shooting them, and I'm loading 10 more, and then I'm shooting them, and I'm loading 10 more, and I'm shooting them. And that's not even counting if I'm loading stuff ahead of time, like to go to a training. Like, I mean, people that are like, they don't understand. It's like people that when I see people that are like, hey, the fucking loader. I know I'm like that dude doesn't fucking shoot. I can just tell. I'm like that guy doesn't shoot. I mean, because he doesn't load them enough that it wears out. It becomes an issue. So and some magazines like the HK magazines of EP9s, they are so sharp they'll cut you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they'll cut the heck out of you. Actually, it's
I
funny you should mention the AR9. I've actually been toying with the idea of getting an AR9 that takes the Wilson X9 magazines because Wilson makes one. Um,
Ooh.
well, I mean that I've kind of forgot about it, but it's like you know, I haven't had an AR. They When I first had an AR9, they didn't call them an AR9. I had this Olympic Arms thing. I've talked about it on a pod. This thing was I think probably I don't know, maybe 95. I had this thing, but I ended up getting rid of it. But I've always got a couple thousand rounds of 9mm in a truck, and I've always got at least 10, if not more, of the X9 magazines because it's my everyday carry gun. Plus, I've got the three that I always have two on me. And it's like, and the thing is too, like these X9 magazines, they are so durable. It's unreal,
Mhm.
and I understand, like, it makes sense, to get a Glock. But, if you're running an X9 and you want one of these X9, carbines, it's like, I mean, it's no different than, if you were issued a duty Beretta and you get the AR9 that takes Beretta magazines, or
Mhm.
if you had an M&P or whatever, like, Goliath makes sense. But I don't know that I'm thinking I'm long term into this X9 gun, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know, 18 round magazines. I mean, it could be longer, but it's still 18 round magazines. I mean, that's not
Yeah.
bad. I mean,
No.
that's not bad.
Well, you get into something, like a 308 battle rifle, you're generally looking at 20 round mags, so it's not like you're giving up capacity.
Yeah. Just to have it, just something to
Yep.
do. And I might do it later in the year. But it just recently kind of popped up on my radar for a project, but and then you popped up with this AR9 thing. It's like, oh, what do you read my email? Um, a special note that reminds me. So I've been so busy because we're dealing with all the construction on the range. There's Yeah, we I've got contractors every day. We're having some email problems with the John 1911 domain email addresses. So there's podcast at john1911.com. There's armory at john1911.com. I'm not exactly 100% certain what's going on. I think I'm getting the emails, but it looks like some people are not getting my responses. So we're working with our IT contractor to try to figure it out. And the header, there's issues that have come up, and I may have to make a huge. We're having a mail server issue. Like, we're getting the messages. So if you send us a message at our domain, you may get a response from me from tactical t-shirts at gmail.com email address, because it's the only way I can be certain that you could get it. So we're having issues, and it's kind of related to the Apple system too. So anyway, so that whatever. So this is such a, I don't know. We're doing a podcast. We haven't done one in weeks. I'm way behind. Everything's so screwed up. It's just, we don't do a podcast. It's just tell people that I'm still alive. I don't know what the hell. It's just like, hell, maybe we're getting emails saying, hey, there could be people we're getting some messages, people asking, "Hey, is everything okay with the pod? I assume you're busy." But when I respond to them, they're not responding back, and so I don't know if you think I stopped talking to you? I haven't. Check your spam folders. Check your I don't know. Check something in your computer. But we're having all kinds of issues with technical issues on top of with the construction. I mean everything obviously 2023 and all of the upheaval is bleeding over now into 2024. So have you shot? So this AR9, have you settled on an upper yet?
I've got the upper. I ordered them up separate, so I didn't run into constructive possession issues. So as long as I don't put them together, I could have them both because the lower is marked other. But
Yeah,
I got a 10.5 inch upper for it, so means I'm probably gonna have to get another can because I think suppressing this thing would just be the cat's ass. Now that
yeah.
somebody's got me started into the suppressor world.
Well, I told you. I said once you start going suppressors, you want to suppress everything. So and you got a Harvester 30 like a dealer sample or something?
Yeah, it's in purgatory right now, but as soon as ATF says I can go ahead and have it, then yeah, I bought a Harvester 30 from a buddy that was a dealer and had dealer samples, so he
Yeah,
cut me a really good
those
deal
are
on it.
those are real good, at least because you can, get the inserts for the different thread pitches so you can move them. And I understand. Some of the suppressor nerds are like screaming at the computer or whatever they're doing. I understand the I don't want to use the word tolerance stacking because that's anything not the right thing, but you're introducing, you know, threaded inserts introduces error that could show up, that, uh, a tenth of a degree, back here becomes maybe a full degree, 5 inches away, at
Mhm.
the front. So, you gotta, they're not perfect, but, you know, for having just a basic can, I think those Harvester 30s are real good. Even some of the
Yeah,
snipers around here use them on their actual call out rifles because they're super lightweight. They just direct thread them on and just leave them.
yeah, and he threw in a an adapter for 1/2 inch with it also.
Yeah, the adapters are. I've got the one we have. I mean, we've got the half by 28. There's another insert for a different inch pattern. Then we've got two metric patterns because basically those Harvester 30s with those inserts are about the only suppressors I can get on European or German guns that use metric
Mhm.
threads. I mean, it's just like I mean, you can't get shit in America with metric threads on it. And if you do,
Yeah,
you're stuck. It's like you're just stuck on that one gun. So yeah. So it's a if you have a gun made in Germany and it's got weird metric threads on it, go to Silencer Co's website. I think they still make this, but you can get these cans where you can get an insert for the back end of it, and you can use a tool and back out the thread converter and put in a different converter that has a different thread pitch to screw in on a different barrel, and it's real handy for that European stuff. So yeah, them Germans, they don't use that English imperial stuff.
nine.
It's all metric over there. It's all kilometers and metric. They don't do that inch stuff.
Yeah, I didn't
So
think that was too bad of a deal, with the two inserts and everything. So,
yeah, those inserts, they're like 100 and I think $80 or $180 a piece. I haven't ordered one in a while.
mhm.
Um, so yeah, they're pretty. I mean, I think it's a great starter suppressor.
Yeah,
Um, I came to a realization. So you know how like you can't use your 30 cal suppressor. You're oh wait a minute, hold on. Wait a minute. I don't. You can't. This suppressor, that Harvester 30.
mhm.
Yeah, you're going to get a different suppressor, right?
Yeah, for this nine.
Yeah, because it's a 355.
Yeah,
It's
I'll have
a
to get a
yeah.
different can for
Yeah.
it.
So, well, I just realized something. If if everybody was shooting 30 super carry, we could all use 30 caliber suppressors on our pistols, and life would be so much more simpler. I'm just saying. It's so
Still trying to get forward movement on the 30 super carry, I see.
I think that's probably dead, but I don't know. I was
I think it's gonna, if it's not completely dead, it's it's right up there with the 327 Federal Magnum.
Is
Looks
327 actually dead?
It's pretty dead. I mean, if you got one, you love it. You're probably not getting rid of it. It's for the most part anymore a reloader's proposition. I looked into getting one and then just trying to source brass from anywhere.
Oh, you can't
Uh,
actually get factory ammo with 327. You can't get
God,
any anywhere?
I haven't seen any in years.
Really?
Uh, now granted, everything's been tight for a few years now, but I was
Yeah.
looking at 327 in a little 3-inch SP 101. Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, a couple 4 or 5 years ago, and even in the big box stores like Cabela's, Shields, I haven't seen a box of factory ammo, let alone good defensive carry ammo, for at least 5 6 years now.
Wow. Okay. So I didn't actually know it was dead, but I'm not a big revolver guy. I mean,
Yeah, guys
I
that
mean,
have them love them. The numbers on it's very impressive.
well, now Smith and Wesson at SHOT Show just announced because we covered it on the website. They're coming out with the 32 caliber J frames that'll
Hmm.
shoot. Was it 32 Smith and Wesson? Will they
Mm,
shoot? I can't. There's a couple calibers you can get away with.
Probably 32 H&R.
Yeah,
That one's pretty popular.
and there's some. Will these guns fit 327, or is that too long for the cylinder?
I haven't seen the specs on it, but in a J frame, I mean, it would fit a J frame, I would think. But I mean, you can run 357 in a J frame, so I don't know why it wouldn't fit. Uh, so
Maybe it'll because I remember there were like maybe three calibers or four that they're claiming. I think those guns look pretty neat. I wouldn't mind having one at least. That we could use it a little bit and just have it as a reference gun because it's got a lot going for it. It uses a bunch of different calibers. It's got
mhm.
drift adjustable. It's got replaceable and drift adjustable sights. And there was something else with it that I thought was pretty good too. Like you could tell like some revolver nerds got the Smith and Wesson and said, make a real J-frame, assholes. Like you could tell, like it was, yeah, people that actually shoot got them. If I just can't remember the specs, but that's why I'll have to look at that and see if it takes a 327. So,
Yeah. I
but
mean,
back to the
other than
third.
327, I'm just not really interested in a J frame that's not 38 357 myself.
Yeah, I'm interested in playing with the. And we talked about this. We haven't because we haven't done a pod on it. Actually, just this is now just remember this conversation. Uh, I am interested in full wad cutters in 38 and the J frame. Um, I'm not a
Hmm.
big fan of. I know just for the listener, Kraken is not down for the wad cutter for self defense at all. He is not down for that. Um, but
Uh, the caveat being, I'm not down with the trying to load the wad cutter reversed, thinking you're going to get this giant big mushroom expansion with the hollow base wad cutter.
well, yeah,
Uh, Shooting a
okay.
wad cutter out of a J frame in a defensive situation, you know, is probably fine. It's not going to be any different than just carrying ball ammo in one. And a J frame is a close up gun anyway. But the big thing a while, some years ago was guys would try and flip that hollow base wad cutter around and think they've got this giant mushrooming projectile with the 148 grain or 146 grain hollow base wad cutter. And you just can't push them hard enough to get them to open up. They just and
Yeah,
they don't fly right.
yeah, I'm not even trying to get shit to open. Like because I was reading about like my interest in a full wad cut, not a semi wad, a full wad cutter in a J frame is just the idea of just kind of how much more it tears. Like I'm not a big fan of, like, there's a lot of people in the gun space who screw this up when it comes to barrel length. And you see it all the time. Like the 1911, the classic case would be in the 1911s, you'd see some guy and he's got some, Colt Mustang off. I call him officer size 1911,
Mm-hmm.
and he's got 230 grain hollow points in his officer's gun. And it's just like, dude, you're losing so much feet per second for that short barrel, and you're just getting all that recoil and all that report and all that flash. You would just be better off, when you make the barrel shorter, you got to make the bullet lighter if you want it to go fast because you to get the expansion. And so like these guys that carry these short barreled like these J frames or these real pocket rocket guns with 357 Magnum in them. It's like it's cool. Number one, you don't shoot it much, if at all. Number two, you never really looked at. You're not. You're shooting a guy and maybe setting him on fire, but you're not really putting. You're not really putting enough. I don't think the recoil impulse, and the flash isn't worth. I'd rather be able to put, 2 rounds quickly into somebody, boom, 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 with a wad cutter than try to blast 357 out of a, 1 7/8 inch barrel.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm just not down for any of that. Like I don't like plus P stuff, because if you see my school of thought is if you see a big flash coming out of a handgun, you're just wasting powder. And
Yep.
so the idea of a full wad cutter in a little pocket rocket that doesn't recoil hard but does more damage than say a ball ammo because just the shape of it, like at least it just would cause more bleeding maybe. That seems interesting to me. And with the range updates that we're doing, one of the things that will help a lot of this will be interesting is we will have technically the ability to manage ballistic gelatin because you got to have refrigerators. Ballistic gelatin has to be formed in a refrigerator.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we wanted to do some of this personal testing, I mean, no one needs us to do testing in gelatin to learn anything. I mean, you just go talk to the FBI. But, if there's stuff that we're interested in, and if we did want to share it or make video with it, we have the ability to mix and create ballistics gelatin, at the John 1911 range this year. I mean, I delivered a refrigerator 2 days ago to the barn, so we have a refrigerator. So, and I can put more refrigerators in. I can put 10 of them in there if I need to.
You can keep your foo-foo water cold now too.
Yeah, my enhanced juice water, my Cincinnati Reds water. But isn't there's a I've seen this on the internet, and I didn't realize it until I saw someone make a reference to it. Have you ever seen people make the videos it looks like ballistics gelatin, but it is, in essence it is. It's not, but it's real clear. It's not, it doesn't have that yellow
Yeah.
pasty hue to it. It's like a clear stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen it's like, is that like ballisticsgel.com or something? Well, I didn't realize this. So you know, that product, apparently you can buy that product from the company and they ship it to you in gel packs in those squares, in the rectangles. But if somebody on the internet said, "Do you can melt that and then reform it and you don't have to use refrigeration." Like FBI ballistics gelatin, 10% ballistics gelatin, you have to pour it and mix it to the correct ratios and then like it's like making a Jello mold, and then you got to pour it into the mold, and you got to put it into the thing, and you got to freeze it, or you got to chill it. And this product, I think you just melt it and just pour it into a thing again,
Hmm.
and then it just I don't think you have to like you could leave it out in the sun until it melted, like it wouldn't melt at room temperature. Like if it was 72 degrees, I don't think it would just melt away. I think it'd
Hmm.
have to be at like 100 and something before it melted. And it's like, well, hell, that could just be easier too,
Yeah.
So I've always projects and shit floating around, all this kinds of stuff going on. It's a lot. So you want to hear the latest on the barn construction?
Sure. You
I
got you
guess we'll
got my
call.
Gilligan's hammock in there yet?
We have delivered. A lot has happened just in the past. Well, a lot in the past 4 days, then a lot happened today. So they've put in electric panel. They're trying to get it inspected. Hopefully, the county's going to come tomorrow and trench. They're going to set a pole because we're getting our own pole and electric pole, and then they're going to trench from the road to the building. That's $11,000, and uh, and then so that'll be set. And then the electrician who initially set in the box, he's going to start punching out in the garage side to late tomorrow afternoon, and he's going to be doing all that. Also today, uh, is it a backhoe? The thing with the bucket that reaches out? Is that called
Yep.
a backhoe? So
Backhoe.
a
Yep.
small backhoe showed up today and a bunch of stuff, and they're going to start digging the septic system tomorrow. And they're expecting, I guess, someone to drop off a tank or some tanks. I don't know for the septic system. So that's
Hmm.
happening tomorrow. And then we had a call today for scheduling the consult for the fiber optic. And we're also, I believe, this week we will see with the septic, we will see the trench for the water line. Like all of a sudden now, these are all on top of each other. And on Thursday or Friday, I I have let's see what I brought in there. I brought in a kitchen counter, bought kitchen counters so that in a place that we can have a sink and prepare food. There's a refrigerator. There is a washer and a dryer. There is a 50-gallon water heater, which we don't need. I tried to buy something smaller, but it was just cheaper to buy the bigger one.
Hmm.
Um, a a shower insert, but that's too big. It has to be pulled out. A whole building water filter system that can handle like it's good for 600,000 gallons of water or something. Like has to flow through if we have to change it.
Hmm.
What else was there? Um, and they're and they started punching they've also started punching in the water. Like they're like the hot waters to run the hot water to the shower, the hot water to in the bathroom, the water for the water lines for the washer dryer, water lines for the kitchenette area, and then water lines for the service for the hot and the cold.
Nice.
They ran hot and cold spigots for the wash the tractor today. So it's been I've sometimes had to drive there twice a day. It's been crazy busy, which is why there hadn't been a podcast. So oops. So okay, so I apologize. I don't have a police blotter. We're not organized. This is just proof of life. There's been a ton of stuff going on. Nikki Haley's out. The out. The I personally don't think the bump stock oral arguments before the Supreme Court that happened. We haven't talked about. I think personally think it went terribly. It was awful. It was. I mean, I was
I don't
listen.
know
I
if it
listen.
could have went any worse.
I mean, this was so bad. I was listening to it. At the end of it, I was like. Yeah, I guess we should go ahead and ban bump stocks. I mean, I was like, what the fuck? Like, wait, wait a minute. Like, what is? Oh, wait,
I
I'm on the other side of this.
listening to it, I just had this continual picture in my head of the attorney arguing for bump stocks with this deer in the headlight look.
Oh man, he just kept saying the same shit over and over again.
And
And,
and they kept trying to clarify that's not what we're talking about here, sir. And
hmm
he just kept going, exactly the same. It's like we are not exception. We're talking, function, actuation. He was caught up in the one shot per trigger pull, and they were caught up in the. But does it
hmm
make it fire like a machine gun? Because that's what we're going to decide upon.
Well,
And
what
he had
what
no answer to that at all.
what killed him? What's going to kill him is there were two. There was a moment that was so ridiculous. It was embarrassing. But what killed him, and he had no defense for it. Now, let me, my fellow pro gun people, I don't think you should be able to ban bump stocks. I don't think you can't ban physics. However, the argument is, and the government has a very good argument, and we've all talked about one pull of the trigger, and like so it's a one function of the trigger, and so it was like, what is a function? And then they were talking about, they even talked about it was very. If you haven't listened to the oral arguments, you really should listen to them on our website. We have the full hour, and I'll tell you what, they people came prepared. They were talking about guns most of y'all have never heard of, and they were talking about forward firing triggers, and Justice Jackson, Katanji Brown Jackson, she's the newest member, and she's obviously going to vote against, she's going to vote for striking down. She's going to vote against bump stocks. She, by far, had the most accurate and legally correct understanding of what a machine gun is and how a machine gun functions. Because a lot of justices were having a hard time, like, what's the definition of a machine gun here? And, like the idea of like, well, actuate of a trigger. Well, if you make a device that pulls a trigger, is is that is that a machine gun? Well, if you make a device that pulls a device that pulls a trigger, like how far do you take this? And and so she really had a good she took them to that end. But then the other thing, the argument that the government made that I thought was devastating was focusing on the spring that's in the bump stock, because they talked about, and see, people see, the thing is, a lot of us, we're like, I've made the argument about the trigger, and then you'll get people on the internet, they'll make the argument about the rubber band or the belt loop, and the justices, they all talked about that. They talked about the rubber band, and they all talked about the belt loop repeatedly. But what the government said, and it stuck, was a belt loop does not have a self-regulating mechanism in it. A rubber band does not have a self-regulating mechanism in it. A bump stock has a spring in it that functions as self-regulating. What's going to kill them on this is going to be that spring. And it's entirely possible that in the written arguments, and some of the facts, that maybe there's a way out of this or there's a way forward. But so, not the entire case isn't made in oral, but it it was terrible. And then there was a point. So I don't was who asked this question, because they wanted to give the guy an out, and you could tell the attorney for Cargill, which is the person who's trying to make bump stocks legal for all intents and purposes. And so it's Cargill is the name, the plaintiff, and they said, okay, is there a is there a reason why a bump stock would be of benefit or use
Oh,
to people. And he goes like they and he goes, well, Your Honor, or Justice so and so, a bump stock would enable somebody who is disabled or has physical disabilities to be able to operate, you know, the gun. Basically, what he said is a bump stock would enable a crippled person to be able to bump fire a gun.
yeah, he made the brace argument.
He made the brace argument, and then the justice goes, I. So the justice goes, I don't think that Congress, when they wrote the National Firearms Act in 1934, that they envisioned regulating machine guns from the average person, but then giving a carve out for what they would call rapid fire or machine guns to crippled people. And they didn't use the word crippled. And it was such a slap in the face. You could tell that this attorney, he's had a year to get ready for this. This is going to come up. Somebody's going to make the argument. They're going to ask, is there a special category of person that maybe we should think? That's what the whole argument for the brace is. And he just made this fucking answer up. It was so bad. I mean, the whole courtroom started laughing. It was
Yeah,
I can't. It was awful. It was awful. And so then we had a listener, he's going to be listening to the podcast. I'm not criticizing you. I can't remember your name off the top of my head, but we had a listener come in and on our comment section on the website, and he posted, he's like, hey, you should listen to this. And mind you, the Cargill, the oral arguments case, I've now listened to that 4 times and taken notes. And he's like, hey, listen to this. And it's an interview between Eric from Iraq Veteran 8888 and Cargill, the actual Cargill plaintiff. Turns out the Cargill plaintiff is a black guy. I didn't know who he was. He's a black guy. And like maybe he owns a gun store or something, but he's the plaintiff in the case. His last name is Cargill. And they were talking post oral. And you watch this interview, and maybe in the first 2 or 3 minutes, the Cargill guy kind of goes, yeah, some people on the internet were saying that, maybe it wasn't really going that well. But then they go on and on and on, just basically they're in complete denial of how this went. And,
yeah.
the Cargill guy, if I hate to say this, but if that interview with Iraq veteran 8888 in Cargill is an example of the Cargill guy. It's his name on the lawsuit. He has got a lot of effort and probably a fair amount of money and identity and prestige. Or I'm not mean this in like a derogatory way, but there's nobody that's more interested in winning this case than the person whose name is on the case. And he's literally saying that this was great. He's like, this was great. We're winning. This was awesome. Like we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that and blah blah blah. And he was even he started talking about Gatling guns. And he was making arguments that there weren't in the oral, and maybe they're in the written, but it was like listening to the Iraq Veteran 8888 and Cargill interview was like, if you listen to that, you would think that like this is a slam dunk. Like this is going to be this is going to be we're going to win this. And it's like, I hate to tell you, this is going to go down. Like I mean if it we'll be lucky if we lose. We'd be lucky. There is no way. There is no way this will be a 5-4
No,
loss. This could,
I
This
can
could be.
almost see
This
nine
is
zero.
prop. I would. I'm not going to say 9-0.
8-1 maybe. I could
I
see
would say
maybe Kavanaugh
it's
staying
going
in
to be
there.
either it's either going to be a 7-2 or an 8-1. It's going to be bad. It's
Yeah.
going to be fucking terrible. And the only way out of this is if for some reason the Supreme Court the Supreme Court does the same thing that they did with Trump and in Colorado, which I predicted. Danny will listen to this, and I told him it was going to be a nine. I said I said it could be an 8-1, but I said be prepared for a 9-0 decision on the Trump Colorado case, the removing Trump off the ballot, because the Supreme Court does not want to put themselves in the middle of this politics. And the Supreme Court is like, let the people vote for who they want to fucking vote for. So the only hope here, the only hope the Supreme Court in Cargill and bump stocks is not that Cargill won the case. The only hope is the Supreme Court is not going to rule on this to ban bump stocks. And if Congress wants to ban bump stocks, if they want to ban bump stocks, they're going to have to pass a law because it may be so far away from the NFA and how they wrote the NFA, the function, and they may just say y'all gonna have to. They may basically do it. Y'all gonna have to pass a law if you want to ban these fucking things, and that's a hail mary. We're
Well,
man, we're gonna
they
lose this
did
one.
bring up the question, why hasn't there been a legislative answer to this? And then we
They
wouldn't
did,
even be involved.
yeah, they did. hmm
So
Um,
that's unless there's a blue dress with DNA on it somewhere in the written that we haven't heard of, we're screwed on this case.
well, people that don't know what they're talking about, they talk about the Chevron the Chevron deference. It's like, oh, this is the Congress. They're like the argument is that these bureaucrats are passing laws that Congress needs to pass. Like they don't have the authority to do this. Unfortunately, I hate to tell you this. Unfortunately, in the case of the ATF, Congress did specifically give the ATF a wide berth to fucking regulate this shit. They absolutely did. And I'm sorry, but they did. And they did it in 1934. And then they did it again in 1968. And there were even a bunch in between there. And they absolutely said, it wasn't called the ATF at the time, but they basically like, you guys have to figure some of this shit out as you determine, as you deem. And they've gone along with it. It's not like somebody some bureaucrat decided, oh, by the way, that pond out behind your barn is now a federal waterway. It's like, well, what the fuck? Like, where'd this come from? Unfortunately, when it comes to the regulation of firearms in the ATF, and my fellow gun people don't want to hear this because they get on these fucking gun forums and it's just an echo chamber. Congress did pass a law by statute that gives the ATF a lot of authority in here because it was one of the earliest examples in 1934, because the modern bureaucratic government system really grew and was created after about World War One in this country. And it got to the point, in 1934, we're about 15, 20 years into this. And it was obvious it was going to be a very technical question. And so Congress, when they created the NFA, they wrote it in such a way that they would let, quote, the experts, the gun people in government, make judgments as this stuff develops. And that is, it sucks. I hope we win it. I hope this is like, you know, I hope this is like Donald Trump in 2016. I went to bed. I'm like, fuck it. I'm not staying up for this. Fucking Hillary Clinton. Oh, I have to wait for Pennsylvania to come in. I'm like, give me a break. And I'm like, this isn't gonna fuck it. I'm just going to. I'm not gonna stay up all night. And I woke up and I'm like, what do you mean Donald Trump won? I
Mhm.
would love. I trust me. Everybody listen to this podcast. I've been pretty down on this case. If we win this, please rub this in my face. Gladly, I will take this just like I took 2016 with Trump. I will take it every day. It'd be my pleasure. But man, like if you were to tell me like, hey, Marky, you wanna bet your all your fortune or your sacred honor on the outcome of Cargill, I'd be like, no, no way. That was
No.
terrible. That was terrible.
And I'll go
Sorry.
one better. So if Cargill comes up on the losing end, binary triggers are gonna fall very quickly after that
Yeah.
because of the same theory.
It's going to be the same thing. It's going to be the spring.
They will get the ATF will get on binary triggers so fast it'll make your head spin.
Well, they even reference the FRT trigger in the orals that this is coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's so one of the arguments, and like what was interesting, and there was a comment in the orals that they said they specifically talked about RPM and rounds per minute, and they said, well, how fast can a human shoot? And they were like, yeah, a human, like a well trained shooter, your justice is about 400. They were like about 400, maybe 450 rounds a minute. And like then like this thing, they're like saying that it could be, like what was 700, 800, 900 rounds a minute. So I thought that was a great opening to possibly argue on this issue was the actual rounds per minute on two fronts, and here's why. And well, three. The first one is it's like, okay, is a Gatling gun a machine gun? Because they mentioned Gatling gun. Somebody mentioned Gatling gun. Maybe no, the they didn't mention it in orals. They mentioned the Gatling gun in the Cargill Iraq Veteran 88 interview. But the Gatling gun, the faster you crank it, it's like it's maybe it's a quarter. It's not a quarter turn, but maybe it's a that crank on the original Gatling gun is, I don't know, I've seen it. It's like maybe 20% of the circle, like boom, 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 boom. Like, so, like a full revolution might be 5 shots. And then if you crank it faster, those 5 shots come faster and faster and faster. And so you can get a RPM number off of that. And they were like, well, then a well trained shooter, your justice can get 400, maybe 400 rounds per minute. So what I did, I was like, real quick, I paused it and I went to the internet and I looked up what is Jerry Michelet's record for the I can't remember which one I did, but it was his revolver record with, I think he did 8 shots. I think was it not the one where he did the reload, but there's another one where he did, I think it was 8 shots on 4 pieces of steel. It was like boom, 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 like it was an 8 shot revolver. And
Mm-hmm.
he set a speed record, and I factored it. It was 480 rounds a minute is what he was shooting at. And so they're close. But so here's the thing. This opens an opportunity to say, all right, what is if with okay, what is a machine gun and what is based off RPM? So if Jerry Michelet can do 480 rounds a minute with a revolver, he can also maybe do 480 rounds a minute with, or he can do maybe 500 because I've seen Jerry Michelet do something where he took a 1911 and he just moved his hand back and forth, or he did something and the thing fired like, I mean, it looked like a machine gun. It was, and but here's the thing, it's the minute part I think is the angle here, because you could even say they talk about the shooting in Las Vegas is what caused all this. And it's like, well, how many rounds per minute was the guy firing of these bump stocks? In no example do they give, whether it's Jerry Michelik or whether it's the dude with the bump stock, did either one of those people actually shoot for a full 60 seconds? So if you don't shoot for a full 60 seconds, if you're at a runway of 480 rounds a minute for for 3 seconds, but then you can't fire again for the next, 57 seconds, then your RPM is actually really low. I think there's an avenue to attack, because because one of the arguments they were making in Cargill was, well, it's essentially a machine gun, this super rapid fire. Well, Cargill's lawyer was not prepared to talk about RPM. He wasn't. All he wanted to talk about was the trigger. That's all he wanted, and he didn't even say it that way. The way he was saying it was kind of weird to me.
The
Um,
curved metal lever.
Yeah, but it was like act the function of the trigger. And it's like,
Yep.
okay, like he could have said, well, you're justice, you can't ban physics. And, he could have gone it from a physics angle. But he was not prepared to answer the disability thing, because he just made it up on the fly. And they were waving RPM in front of him like a red cape in front of a bull. And he just didn't have the wherewithal to go after it. Because I don't think they structured any of their argument on RPM. And we could have set a whole new standard here of RPM, not just rounds per minute, but rounds per clocked minute. So, like, if you can fire as many rounds as you can, if you can fire 1,000 rounds in 10 seconds, but then the next 50 seconds you don't fire anything, well, that guess what? We're going to pull your rounds per minute down, because it's got to be for a minute. And I think there's a real opening here, because none of these bump stocks, people have to hold on to them, and they have to hold on to them just right, and just get it, or it gets fucked up. And even I remember watching the footage of the attack in Vegas, and you would literally hear the machine, and it was obviously a bump stock, and it wasn't a machine gun. Like somebody's like, oh, it was a 240. Bullshit. I've never heard a 240 speed up and slow down. If you
Yeah.
listen to that guy shooting that bump stock in Vegas, it's because he's trying to hold it and ride it. And I don't
Hmm.
think he ever actually got a burst to last anywhere near a minute.
No.
It's like, okay, if we're gonna talk about like a machine gun, Justice Jackson, what is a machine gun? Well, how many rounds per minute is a machine gun? The court isn't, the Congress wasn't clear on that. They just talked about trigger. I could have made an RPM argument and had this totally thing just destroyed, and they would have to throw it to the courts, and they would have, or throw it to Congress, and they would have to pass legislation basically saying, if you're able to get 700 rounds a minute for 60 consecutive seconds, that's a machine gun. We don't care how you do it. 60 seconds is a long time to bump fire. 60 seconds to bump fire, I would venture to say I'm not going to say it's almost impossible, but I would say it's very difficult. It's very difficult. Either you don't have the firepower, or you don't have the wherewithal to be able to ride that trigger
Yeah.
just right. And Cargill went nowhere with that. I don't know, somebody special needs,
But
to bump fire.
it really sounded to me like if the layman would have spent a half hour on the forums and just asked, how does the bump stock work and what does it do? That was his year of trial prep. because
Well,
because anything past, well, it's one shot per function of the trigger. Well, they dive off into what function means. He's not prepared to deal with it.
he
They do
wasn't
the
prepared for
the
that at
box
all.
with the two button argument. He wasn't prepared to counter that.
Mm-hmm.
It's if you couldn't read it on a gun form with the basic question, can somebody tell me how a bump stock works? Anything after that, he was not prepared for.
One of the things he was saying, he was kind of harping in on with the Cargill lawyer, was he was saying, well, no, because you have to push. He was saying you have to push forward on this thing. So it's not just a trigger that makes it work. You have to push forward on it. So it's not the trigger that's doing it, it's two things. And that opened the argument of the two thing, three thing, four thing
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have a box, you have a trigger that functions the Rucker machine gun. And then somebody makes a box that functions a trigger. Is that still a machine gun? Then somebody makes a box that functions a box that 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 functions a trigger. Is that still a machine gun? And the government was fully prepared. They had all kinds of examples of these crazy guns that they have approved that they subsequently later had sent letters on, be like, nah, we decided that is a machine gun.
Yep.
And some from the 60s, some from the 70s, and it was like, I mean, Cargo was just getting, I'm telling you, there's people listening to this podcast and us talk about this. They're mad because they don't want this to be true. They're mad. They just want their side to win. I want our side to win, but I'm not going to talk into your ear and tell you something I don't believe is true. We lost this one hard. It was terrible. And we could make an argument. Maybe the lawyer didn't do a good job and we could have won. The lawyer, the government made an argument that I wasn't prepared to make. I was
Mm-hmm.
making the trigger argument. But if I had seen some of these arguments working their way through the court system in appeals, I would have started going after RPMs. Because you can
Yeah.
make more than one argument. You don't have to make one argument. You can have multiple lanes of attack. The justices even asked, "Are you making a Second Amendment argument here, Mr. Cargill attorney?" And he goes, "Your Justice so and so, we have not made a Second Amendment argument. However, we don't concede the Second Amendment argument. We just have chosen not to make the argument. You can make multiple points of attack to destroy this." He didn't even make a Second Amendment argument. Not that he needs, not that that would have worked, you know. But I
Mm-hmm.
mean, he could have possibly even cracked open the door on Hughes. He could have said part of the reason why we're here is because and and like when the justice said with the special needs thing, when the justice said, I don't think that Congress wanted to stop people from being able to run machine guns just so they could have a carve out so people with special needs could run machine guns with disabilities. And then he could have said, Justice, Congress did not ban machine guns in 1934. Yes, they were concerned about organized crime and machine guns, but they didn't ban machine guns. They just heavily regulated them. Subsequently, down the line, we have banned new machine guns on the registry, and it has skewed the entire market. And it's a functional. This exists because it's a functional violation of the Second Amendment because of Hughes in '86, and I would have wrote that one into it as well. They didn't make any of that. All he was like trigger and pushing forward, trigger and pushing forward, and he is just going to and just watching Ivy 88 dude and Cargill like this is great, it went awesome. It's like what fucking courtroom were you in?
Right.
It was terrible. Anyway, if I can let
It,
me go on.
it even got so bad. I mean, they were starting. The court was trying to challenge. Okay, at what point does because he kept referring to the trigger as the curved metal lever. Well, they started going down the road. Then does the spring and the bump stock then become the trigger itself? Does the bump stock
Mm-hmm.
become the trigger? Does the two buttons on the box, which one's actually the trigger now? Uh, you know,
Well,
and
their
he
argument,
had nothing for that. It was
he had
crazy.
nothing for that because their argument was, and rightfully so, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Because their argument was if it functions like a machine gun, it's a machine gun. But he could have gone in different directions and been like, you need to figure out what a machine gun is besides just function of because the law just says function of the trigger. No one's talking about RPM.
Mhm.
And, obviously that's what y'all are really talking about here. Because you're like, it's just like a machine gun. Well, just like a machine gun sounds like an RPM argument. And nowhere does anywhere say RPM anywhere. But that
Yeah.
spring and that bump stock self-regulating is going to kill it. It is going to kill it. And that self-regulating it's probably gonna kill the FRT as well. Doesn't the FRT because it's a forced reset.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. As a matter of fact, it will kill it. It 100% will kill that.
Yep.
So
So anybody wants to buy a box of 5,000 Mini 14 binary triggers, go to Staples and get them now before the price goes up.
well, this wraps up episode 333 of the John 1911 podcast. This is Proof of Life. If you want to see the most pictures or stories or links of anything we discussed, please go to the website at john1911.com. That's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and shooting your bump stocks. Everybody, have a good night.
See you later.
Thanks for the Proof of Life.